Hey, Raiders Nation, let's get into it because there's a lot happening with the silver and black that you need to know. The preseason is always a wild ride, full of surprises, and this year is no different. As the team fine-tunes its roster, there are a few names that could really shake things up before the final cuts are made. Some of these players have been quietly showing flashes of talent. Others have struggled to find their rhythm, and a handful could end up leaving fans scratching their heads. We're talking about moves that are not just about saving a few $1 million or making space on a roster. They're about shaping the team for this season and beyond, and that's where the intrigue begins. Let's start in the backfield. There's been a lot of chatter around the running back situation, and while Raheem Mostert has had some buzz, the reality is that the Raiders might be considering moving on. I know, it might feel shocking at first glance because Mostert has been part of the conversation for a while, but when you dig into the details, it starts to make sense. Ashton Gentry has been quietly commanding attention, and honestly, his ability to handle the passing duties with ease has turned a few heads. He's shown comfort in the huddle, confidence on the field, and the kind of versatility that you want from your lead back. When a younger player steps in and demonstrates that he can carry the load, it opens the door to difficult decisions for the veterans who were brought in primarily for their specialized roles. And this is where the numbers come into play. Mostert has been averaging around 5 yards per carry in the preseason, which is solid, but there's a lack of touchdowns and first downs that stand out when you really scrutinize the tape. Meanwhile, players like Sincere McCormick and Chris Collier are showing the ability to block in the run game and contribute on special teams, a critical factor that Mostert, and even Zamir White, just don't offer. Special teams can be a make-or-break factor in close games, and having players who can fill those roles adds value beyond the stat sheet. It's not just about what you see in a carry or a reception. It's about depth, versatility, and ultimately, who gives the Raiders the best chance to win. Transitioning to the wide receiver room, Tommy Millow is another player who has been under the microscope. Drafted in the 6th round, he comes from a stellar college career where he was nothing short of dominant, winning awards and turning heads. But the jump from FCS football to the NFL is monumental. The speed, the precision, the mental adjustment required, it's all on a different level. Millow is an exceptional athlete, no doubt about it, but this season is proving to be a learning curve. Preseason stats haven't been kind, and he's buried deep on the depth chart. The team has to weigh his potential against immediate impact. If the Raiders are focused on winning now, every roster spot is precious, and that might mean Millow has to continue his development behind the scenes. That doesn't mean he won't succeed. It just means patience is required, both from the organization and from Raider Nation fans who are rooting for him to break through. On the offensive line, there's a conversation about Theo Munford that's catching some attention. Many analysts have placed him comfortably in the top 53, but there's a bigger picture here. If you're keeping a developmental piece like Charles Graham from the 3rd round, it might make sense to prioritize the player who can immediately impact the interior line, and that could mean letting Munford go. The Raiders need depth on the interior, and while Munford has experience, the preseason numbers have highlighted struggles, particularly in pass protection. Protecting the quarterback is paramount, and if there's a question mark around that, the team might look to reallocate resources elsewhere. Investing in another player who can stabilize the line could ultimately pay dividends down the stretch, giving the silver and black the consistency they need on every snap. Shifting over to the defense, there are some intriguing possibilities for surprise cuts. Linebacker Cody Lindenberg is one that has been in the conversation, and while he's shown flashes in limited preseason action, the team has made several strategic additions after the draft. Signing veteran players and acquiring talent from outside the organization has shifted expectations, particularly for rookies. Lindenberg was the only linebacker drafted this season, and as a 7th-round pick, the floor and ceiling conversation is always in play. The organization has to evaluate if his development trajectory aligns with their immediate goals or if letting him compete for snaps in a less pressurized environment might make more sense. The savings on his contract aren't huge, but roster flexibility and strategic depth can influence these tough decisions. Defensive tackle is another area of focus, especially with players like Leke Ifu. He's battled injuries this offseason, which has limited his availability, and the team has brought in other options at the position. The Raiders have to consider not only performance, but also health, potential, and fit within the scheme. Younger, healthier players who can contribute immediately and grow with the system might edge out veterans who have struggled to stay on the field. It's a delicate balance between loyalty, potential, and necessity. And that's what makes the preseason such a fascinating period for fans and analysts alike. Finally, in the secondary, cornerback Darnell Holmes is someone who has been labeled a lock by many. Yet the preseason has raised questions about his versatility and fit in a defense that is evolving. Kai Blue Kelly and Greedy Vance are providing strong competition, showing that the team is looking for versatility and adaptability in its corners. Holmes has played well in game situations, but has struggled in practice at times. In a league where practice performance, scheme fit, and depth versatility matter, the Raiders are facing the tough decision of balancing proven contributors with developmental prospects. The question becomes whether they prioritize immediate readiness or long-term potential. What's fascinating about all of this is that the Raiders are juggling multiple layers of evaluation simultaneously. They're not just looking at raw stats or past accolades. They're assessing fit, health, versatility, and long-term planning. Each cut or retention sends ripples across the roster, affecting not only depth, but the team culture and future flexibility. These decisions can define a season and, in some cases, set the trajectory for the team's success for years to come. Every practice rep, every preseason snap, and every strategic move is part of a larger puzzle that the coaching staff and front office are piecing together carefully. The beauty of this process is that it's rarely straightforward. A player who looks like a lock one week can suddenly find themselves in a precarious position the next. Injuries, unexpected performances, and strategic adjustments all come into play, making the preseason a crucible where careers are tested and potential is revealed. For fans, it's a roller coaster of emotions, because rooting for players who might not make the roster is part of the journey. Celebrating victories on the field is great, but understanding the strategy behind roster moves gives a deeper appreciation for how the silver and black operate behind the scenes. Now, moving deeper into the defensive side of the ball, this is where things get even more intriguing for Raiders fans. The preseason has been a stage for younger players and newcomers to make a statement, and the silver and black are facing some real tough calls. Linebackers and defensive backs are positions where versatility, instinct, and adaptability can make or break a roster spot, and the competition this year is fierce. Cody Lindenberg, as we mentioned earlier, is a player who has shown flashes of potential. In limited snaps, he's demonstrated a solid understanding of positioning, good awareness in run support, and the type of football IQ that makes coaches trust him on the field. But with the influx of veterans and other promising talents, the question isn't just about what Lindenberg can do right now. It's about how he projects in a system that is constantly evolving and demanding more from its linebackers. The Raiders have clearly put an emphasis on building depth in the linebacker room, bringing in experienced players who could deliver immediately while also mentoring younger athletes. This creates a layered challenge for rookies. While Lindenberg has the skills set to succeed, he's still raw compared to some of the players around him, and that's where preseason performance becomes critical. Every rep matters. Every snap is analyzed, and the coaching staff has to balance patience with performance expectations. The big question is whether the Raiders prioritize immediate reliability or are willing to invest in development and hope the long-term payoff is worth it. It's a strategic balancing act, and one that can define a young player's career trajectory. Defensive tackle is another position where roster decisions are particularly tricky. Leke Fu, for instance, has battled injuries throughout the offseason, and while he's physically capable, missing significant practice time has left him on uncertain footing. The Raiders have made moves to bolster the defensive tackle rotation, bringing in players who are healthy, adaptable, and ready to step into roles that Fu might have filled. In situations like this, durability and readiness often outweigh potential, especially in the fast-paced world of the NFL. Teams need players who can be relied upon from the first snap of the season. Fu's talent is apparent, but if the team isn't confident that he can contribute consistently, the difficult decision to move on might be the logical choice. Cornerback is where the intrigue really heats up, particularly when you look at Darn Holmes. On paper, Holmes has the connections and experience that would make him seem like a lock for the roster. He's had moments where he's performed well, particularly in game situations, showing solid coverage skills and an ability to make plays when it counts. But the preseason has exposed some inconsistencies, especially in practice sessions where versatility and adaptability are crucial. Kai Blue Kelly and Greedy Vance have both impressed, showing that the Raiders are committed to finding corners who can thrive in multiple roles, whether it's outside, inside, or in nickel packages. Holmes has the skills, but the team has to weigh those against the versatility of other players and the overall fit within the defensive scheme. It's a nuanced evaluation and one that could ultimately reshape the secondary. The decisions don't stop at individual performance. They also involve long-term strategy. The Raiders are not just building for the next game. They're building for seasons ahead. That means considering potential growth, scheme fit, and how each player contributes to depth across multiple positions. Younger players who can develop into key contributors in future seasons may be favored over veterans whose ceiling is already clear. At the same time, the team can't afford to carry players who can't contribute in meaningful ways this season. Every roster spot is precious, and the calculus involves more than stats. It's about vision, balance, and the ability to adapt to a constantly changing roster and competitive landscape. Take, for example, the defensive end and edge positions. The Raiders have invested in both established veterans and developmental prospects, creating a competitive environment where performance is constantly under the microscope. Players who can bring pressure consistently, set the edge against the run, and contribute on special teams have a significant advantage. Those who struggle in one area might still find a role if they excel in another, but the margin for error is small. Injuries, scheme changes, and situational needs all play a role, meaning that adaptability is often more valuable than raw talent alone. This is why preseason evaluations are so fascinating. Fans often look at stats, tackles, sacks, interceptions, but the real story is in the tape, in how players read plays, how they communicate on the field, and how quickly they adjust to different situations. A linebacker might not have a standout stat line, but if he consistently reads the offense correctly and positions himself to make plays, that value can outweigh a flashier stat line from another player. Similarly, a cornerback who demonstrates versatility and reliability in practice and preseason games may ultimately be more valuable than someone who flashes brilliance in limited scenarios but lacks consistency. The Raiders' coaching staff is faced with the challenge of synthesizing all this information and making decisions that balance immediate competitiveness with long-term potential. It's not just about who looks good on a highlight reel. It's about who fits the culture, who can be counted on in high-pressure moments, and who complements the team's strategic vision. This is the reality of building an NFL roster. The best teams are not simply collections of talented individuals. They are carefully curated groups where each piece serves a specific purpose and contributes to the collective success. Special teams also play an often underestimated role in these decisions. Players who can contribute in multiple phases of the game often gain an edge, particularly when roster spots are tight. A running back, a linebacker, or a defensive back who can also make an impact on kickoff coverage, punt return units, or blocking schemes can be the difference between making the roster or being left off. The Raiders are acutely aware of this, and that awareness drives many of the surprise roster moves that might catch fans off guard but make perfect sense when you consider the bigger picture. Are fans to appreciate that these decisions are rarely simple or purely performance-based? Financial considerations, positional depth, future draft plans, and player development strategies all come into play. A player who might seem expendable at first glance could actually be a strategic asset, while a seemingly solid veteran might not fit into the team's long-term vision. The preseason is as much about evaluating potential and fit as it is about celebrating standout plays. It's a chess match where every move has consequences, and the Raiders are clearly playing to win not just in the short term, but over multiple seasons. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Trevor Lawrence's arrival at the Raiders has sent shockwaves through the sports world, sparking a frenzy that seems almost too intense to be contained within the typical bounds of fan excitement. Rumors swirled for weeks, whispering about trade negotiations, potential contract details, and the seismic shifts this quarterback could cause in the league, but nothing truly prepared the city of Las Vegas for the spectacle that unfolded upon his arrival. Fans lined up for blocks, waving banners, and chanting his name in unison, as if the mere presence of Lawrence in their midst could single-handedly guarantee a season of victories. The atmosphere was electric, fueled by the tantalizing promise of seeing one of the league's brightest talents don the silver and black uniform. Social media erupted almost immediately, with videos of the event going viral, influencers and pundits dissecting every move, every smile, every handshake. In restaurants and bars across the city, conversations revolved around speculation about how Lawrence would fit into the existing roster, how his leadership style might transform team dynamics, and whether his famed arm strength would finally bring the Raiders the consistency they have long been searching for. Some insiders hinted at behind-the-scenes parties attended by key players and executives, adding a layer of mystery to the already high-profile arrival. The overall mood was less about a simple signing and more about a cultural event, a kind of modern-day sporting pilgrimage, where the line between fandom and spectacle seemed almost indistinguishably blurred, leaving the entire city buzzing with anticipation. The celebration itself was a kaleidoscope of sights, sounds, and stories, with every element seemingly designed to underscore the historic nature of Trevor Lawrence joining the Raiders. The stadium lights, normally reserved for game days, blazed like a beacon, illuminating not only the playing field, but also the faces of ecstatic fans whose energy seemed to ripple outward in waves. Street performers and marching bands added an almost carnival-like atmosphere, blending seamlessly with the spontaneous cheers and chants that rose from the crowd, creating a layered tapestry of excitement that was both chaotic and exhilarating. Rumors spread like wildfire regarding which teammates might have greeted him first, whether the coaching staff had orchestrated secretive motivational tactics, and what cryptic messages might have been exchanged behind closed doors. Journalists on the scene attempted to capture every nuance, but the spectacle often seemed to outpace reporting, with viral clips and live streams allowing fans across the globe to experience, in real time, a sense of immediacy usually reserved for the most monumental sporting moments. The hype surrounding Lawrence's integration into the Raiders hinted at more than just football. It spoke to the deep human desire for narrative, for heroes to emerge amidst uncertainty, and for collective celebration to provide a temporary escape from the mundane. Analysts speculated endlessly about his on-field chemistry with star receivers, the possible adjustments to offensive schemes, and whether his renowned composure under pressure could translate into a broader leadership role that would galvanize an entire franchise. The consensus, fueled by both observation and rumor, suggested that the arrival of Lawrence was less a simple roster update than a declaration of intent, a signal that the Raiders were ready to stake a claim at the very pinnacle of the sport. Inside the Raiders' headquarters, the arrival of Trevor Lawrence was rumored to have sparked a flurry of behind-the-scenes activity that added layers of intrigue to the fanfare outside. Sources claimed that strategic meetings ran late into the night, with coaches and staff poring over playbooks, statistical analyses, and countless simulations to optimize his integration into the team's complex offensive system. Speculation about which veteran players might feel threatened, inspired, or motivated by his presence added a dramatic tension reminiscent of a high-stakes television drama, and insiders whispered about quiet debates over leadership hierarchy and locker room dynamics. The atmosphere, already charged with excitement, was further electrified by reports of small, spontaneous gatherings, where key figures reportedly brainstormed ways to maximize both Lawrence's potential and the overall performance of the team. Rumors circulated that he himself had been intimately involved in these discussions, offering suggestions, analyzing data, and even proposing unconventional approaches to certain formations, signaling a level of engagement that went beyond mere contractual obligation. The media, ever alert to such stories, speculated on the implications of these moves for the upcoming season, dissecting how this collaborative environment might influence game strategy, chemistry between teammates, and even morale in ways that could ripple across the league. Fans, meanwhile, eagerly consumed every snippet of information, crafting narratives that ranged from utopian visions of perfect seasons to more cautious projections grounded in the unpredictability of professional football. This blend of observation, conjecture, and rumor created a social media ecosystem in which every handshake, every practice session, and every glance in the locker room was scrutinized, reinterpreted, and amplified, solidifying the arrival of Lawrence as not merely a player addition, but a transformative cultural moment for the franchise. As the evening progressed, speculation about Trevor Lawrence's influence on the Raiders' identity began to dominate conversations in both sports media and everyday discussions among fans. Rumors suggested that his presence would not only affect the offensive strategy, but might also inspire a cultural renaissance within the team, fostering a sense of cohesion and renewed ambition that had previously eluded them. Analysts debated endlessly whether the combination of his youth, talent, and charisma could act as a catalyst for a fundamental shift in the organization's philosophy, prompting questions about leadership models, training regimens, and motivational techniques. Social media feeds were inundated with mock-ups of potential uniforms, imaginary highlight reels, and animated GIFs depicting spectacular plays that might occur once Lawrence settled into the team's rhythm. In bars, living rooms, and stadium-adjacent streets, discussions alternated between optimism and cautious realism, fueled by speculation about how the quarterback's temperament and skill set would mesh with long-standing veterans and emerging talents alike. Insider chatter hinted at a complex web of alliances and rivalries within the lock equals in for starting roles, and the delicate balance required to maintain morale. Beyond the tea of local events, fan interactions, and pervasive sentiment, amplified by the blend of hype and rumor, suggested that Trevor Lawrence's arrival had transcended the realm of simple sports news, entering a broader cultural dialogue in which the city, the fans, and the media were all participants in an unfolding narrative filled with anticipation, drama, and endless possibility. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.